playing with your little website again? Dad's voice dripped with familiar condescension as I worked on my laptop at the family dinner table. My sister Rachel, CFO of Anderson Manufacturing, smirked over her wine glass. Leave her alone, Mom sighed. At least she's doing something, even if it's just, what do you call it, dear? E-commerce consulting, I replied without looking up. No point explaining that playing with my website meant running Digital Ventures, one of the largest private equity firms specializing in digital transformation. They wouldn't understand or believe it. Well, Rachel has actual news, Mom brightened. Tell your sister about the expansion plans, honey. Rachel straightened her Prada blazer. Anderson Manufacturing is expanding into 3 new states. We're breaking ground on factories next month. She paused for effect. The board just approved $100 million in funding. I kept my face carefully neutral, knowing what they didn't. Anderson Manufacturing was hemorrhaging money. Their digital infrastructure was a decade behind, and their attempt at modernization was eating cash faster than a furnace. My analysts had flagged them months ago as a potential acquisition target. That's nice, I murmured, sending a quick text to my CEO. They don't know yet. Still announcing expansion plans. Nice. Dad's voice rose. Your sister is helping run $1 billion company. What do you make from your little website business? Enough to pay rent. My phone buzzed. Anderson Manufacturing's stock dropped 15% after hours. Rumors of liquidity issues spreading. I manage, I said mildly, closing my laptop. In truth, my penthouse overlooking Central Park cost more than their house, but they didn't need to know that. Yet. You could still come work for me, Rachel offered with fake generosity. We need someone to manage our social media. A step up from whatever it is you're doing. I thought about the emergency board meeting I'd be attending tomorrow, not as a social media manager, but as their potential savior investor. The irony was delicious. I'll think about it, I lied, standing up. I should go. Client meeting in the morning. Client. Dad scoffed. You mean some small business owner who needs help with Facebook? More like Anderson Manufacturing's board of directors, but I just smiled. Something like that. Rachel's phone rang, the CFO's ringtone. Her face fell as she listened. What do you mean, emergency meeting? The funding was approved. I paused at the door, watching her facade crack. Cancelled? But we announced the expansion. We can't. What do you mean the banks pulled out? Mom and Dad's attention snapped to Rachel, their golden child suddenly looking less golden. I slipped out quietly, texting my team, move forward with the plan. They're ready. In my actual car, a Bentley, not the Toyota I parked at my parents' house, my driver handed me the latest reports. Anderson Manufacturing was in worse shape than even Rachel knew. Their modernization attempt had failed spectacularly, burning through cash reserves. Their stock would crater when markets opened. Unless, of course, a mysterious digital transformation specialist stepped in to save them. The next morning, I sat in my real office 40 stories above Manhattan, watching Anderson Manufacturing's stock plummet on multiple screens. Rachel's expansion announcement had backfired spectacularly, accelerating their decline. Ms. Chin, my assistant, entered. Anderson Manufacturing's board is assembled in conference room A. Your sister just arrived as well. I smoothed my Tom Ford suit. No more casual clothes needed for this meeting. Have they been briefed on their options? Yes. They know their mystery investor is their only hope. They don't know it's you. I smiled, picking up my tablet containing the acquisition terms. Then let's not keep them waiting. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. Rachel, looking disheveled in yesterday's suit, froze mid-sentence. The board members, all of whom had dismissed my digital transformation warnings months ago, stared in confusion. Sarah. Rachel whispered. What are you doing here? The social media position isn't up for discussion today. No, I agreed pleasantly, taking my seat at the head of the table. We're here to discuss the terms of your bailout. Shall we begin? The color drained from her face as understanding dawned. The little sister with her website business was their savior investor. And this was just the beginning. This must be a joke, Rachel stammered, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the conference table. My sister runs a small online consulting business. She can't possibly. Your sister, interrupted Gregory Wallace, head of the board, is the CEO of Digital Ventures, a $16 billion private equity firm specializing in digital transformation. He looked at me apologetically. We should have listened to your warnings last year, Ms. Chen. Rachel's mouth opened and closed silently as my team filed in, armed with tablets and projections. The morning sun through the floor-to-ceiling windows illuminated the Manhattan skyline behind me, a far cry from the small home office my family thought I worked from. Let's review the numbers, I said, pulling up the first projection. Anderson Manufacturing has burned through $380 million attempting digital modernization. Your stock has dropped 68% in 6 months. And, I paused, looking directly at Rachel, your suppliers are demanding cash payments after credit downgrades. How do you know all this? She whispered. Because I've been watching you fail for months. I nodded to my CFO, who distributed detailed reports. Every rushed decision, every botched implementation, every desperate attempt to hide the bleeding. The board members flipped through the documents, faces growing paler by the page. Rachel's hands shook as she read her own department's real numbers, not the optimistic versions she'd been presenting. Page 6 shows your actual cash position, I continued. You have 3 weeks before payroll becomes an issue. The expansion announcement yesterday, that was a nice touch, Rachel. Really accelerated the collapse. You knew, she accused, finally finding her voice. All those family dinners listening to me talk about our plans, you knew we were failing? I tried to warn you, I reminded her. Last Christmas I offered to connect you with our digital transformation team. You said, and I quote, I don't need advice from someone who plays with websites. The board chairman cleared his throat. Ms. Chen, your offer. Digital Ventures will acquire a controlling interest in Anderson Manufacturing, I stated. We'll inject immediate capital, restructure the digital infrastructure and stabilize operations. I slid the terms across the table. In exchange for 51% ownership. 51%? Rachel shot to her feet. That's outrageous. We're a 100-year-old company. A 100-year-old company 3 weeks from bankruptcy, I corrected. Check your email. The banks just pulled your remaining credit lines. As if on cue, phones around the table began buzzing. Rachel's face went ashen as she read her screen. You have 1 hour to decide, I continued, standing. My team will wait here. I have another acquisition meeting at 11. Sarah, wait, Rachel called as I reached the door. Does Dad know about any of this? I turned back, allowing myself a small smile. Remember last month when he said I should get a real job like yours? I had just finished buying the bank that holds your company's loans. Leaving them with that thought, I returned to my office. Through the glass walls, I could see Rachel pacing the conference room, gesturing frantically on her phone, probably calling our father. Right on schedule, my phone buzzed. Sarah. Dad's voice was uncertain. Rachel says, she says you're some sort of major investor? Yo, Dad. Of Digital Ventures. I watched a private helicopter land on my building's helipad, my 11 o'clock appointment arriving. The same company you dismissed as playing around online last week. Silence then. How long? How did we not know? You knew, I corrected. You just never bothered to actually listen when I talked about my work. Too busy bragging about Rachel's corner office. But you work from home. In sweatpants. I work from the 40th floor of the Chin Tower. I paused. You know, the building you always point to when showing off the city? I own it. Another long silence. Rachel says you're taking control of Anderson Manufacturing. If they accept my offer. They have. I checked my watch, 43 minutes left to decide. This isn't a game, Sarah. This is our family's legacy. No, Dad. This is business. I watched Rachel sink into a chair in the conference room, head in her hands. And I learned from the best, from you and Rachel. Always telling me I needed to think bigger, be more ambitious. My assistant signaled. The helicopter client was waiting. I have to go, Dad. But don't worry. I'll take good care of your legacy. Better than Rachel did. I ended the call and straightened my suit. Through the glass, I could see the board members signing my documents one by one. Rachel sat defeated, watching her empire slip away. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in the revelation, it's in the years of quiet work that made it possible. I arrived at Sunday family dinner exactly 2 weeks after the acquisition. The usual pretense was gone. I pulled up in my Rolls-Royce Ghost, my driver opening the door to reveal me in a tailored Chanel suit. No more hiding. The familiar suburban house looked smaller somehow. Mom opened the door before I could knock, her expression a mix of awe and uncertainty. "Sarah, we weren't sure you'd come. And Miss Pot Roast?" I smiled, stepping into the house that suddenly felt like a dollhouse compared to my penthouse. "Where's Rachel?" "In the study. She's been adjusting." Mom wrung her hands. "Your father's with her." I found them in Dad's wood-paneled study. Rachel slumped in an armchair while Dad paced. They both froze when I entered. "The prodigal son arrives," Dad said stiffly. "Here to check on your investment?" "Actually, yes." I took out my tablet, pulling up the latest reports. "Rachel, the transition team needs your sign-off on the digital infrastructure upgrades. Since you're staying on as VP of Legacy Operations." She flinched at the new title, a significant step down from CFO, but better than unemployment. "Do you have to do this? Flaunt it." "Flaunt what?" "Success." I sat down, crossing my legs. "Like you flaunted your corner office? Your executive parking space? The way you told everyone at Christmas about my cute little website business?" "I didn't know." "No, you didn't. Because you never asked." I brought up another document. "By the way, the board approved the AI integration project this morning. The one you killed last year because it was unnecessary expenditure." Dad stopped pacing. "How bad was it really? The company's situation. Would you like to see the real numbers? Not the ones Rachel was showing you." I projected them onto the study wall. Red figures cascaded down, showing the true extent of Anderson Manufacturing's decline. Rachel covered her face. "Dad, I'm sorry. I thought I could fix it." "By announcing expansions you couldn't afford? By hiding losses in subsidiary accounts?" I shook my head. The same tricks wouldn't have worked forever. Mom appeared with a drinks tray, hands shaking slightly as she set it down. "I made martinis. Your assistant mentioned they're your favorite now." "Thank you, Mom." I took a glass, watching them process the new reality. "Speaking of changes, I've reviewed the family trust." Dad straightened. "Now wait a minute. The trust that you moved to Rachel's control last year," I continued, saying I wasn't financially responsible enough to manage it. "I own the bank that administers it now." Rachel's head snapped up. "You can't." "I can." And I did. I pulled up the documents. "The trust has been restructured. You'll all receive reasonable monthly allowances, but control has been transferred to my team." "So that's your revenge?" Dad's voice was bitter. "Take everything from us? Revenge?" I laughed softly. "Dad, if I wanted revenge, I would have let Anderson Manufacturing crash. Watched your life's work disappear. Said I saved it. I'm modernizing it. In 5 years, it'll be worth 10 times what it was under Rachel's management. And we're supposed to be grateful?" Rachel spat. "No. You're supposed to learn." I stood, walking to the window. "Remember when I graduated college? You both laughed at my business plan for a digital investment firm. Said I was thinking too small by focusing on online businesses." They were quiet, remembering. "Now my small thinking owns your real business." I turned back to them. "The world changed while you weren't looking. Digital isn't just websites anymore. It's everything. Anderson Manufacturing failed because you couldn't see that." My phone buzzed. The Asian markets were opening. "The company's stock is up 40% since the acquisition announcement. Your remaining shares are worth more now than they were before the crisis." Dad sank into his chair. "I always taught you to think big." "No, Dad. You taught me to look big. There's a difference." I gestured around the study. All this, the country club membership, Rachel's designer suits, Mom's social circle, it was about looking successful. I chose to be successful instead. Mom dabbed at her eyes. "And all those times we criticized your work." I was closing billion-dollar deals from my laptop. Running a global company while you thought I was playing online. I smiled. "The irony is I learned it from you, Dad. You always said perception was everything in business. So you let us perceive what we wanted to see," Rachel concluded quietly. "Exactly." I checked the time. My helicopter would be waiting. The transition team needs those signatures by morning, Rachel. And Dad, the trust restructuring documents are with your lawyer. You're leaving? Mom asked. But dinner. Board meeting in Singapore. I gathered my things. I'll have my team send a car for Rachel tomorrow, her first day in the new role. At the door, Dad called out, Sarah, are we still family? I paused. We're something better now, Dad. We're business partners. And this time, you'll have to earn my respect instead of demanding it. The Rolls-Royce purred to life as I slid into the back seat. Through the window, I could see them standing in the doorway, Mom clutching Dad's arm, Rachel hugging herself, all watching as their new reality drove away. My phone lit up with updates. Asian markets responding positively to the acquisition, European investors eager for calls, the digital transformation of Anderson Manufacturing proceeding ahead of schedule. Miss Chin, my driver interrupted my thoughts. Your helicopter is waiting at the private terminal. I looked back at the suburban house disappearing in the distance. They'd never understood that success wasn't about showing off. It was about building something real, even if no one was watching. Now they had front row seats to see exactly what their little website business could do. The next morning, I watched from my office as Rachel arrived for her first day. No designer suit, no executive parking space, just another employee learning how the modern business world really worked. On my desk sat a photo from last Christmas, me in casual clothes, working on my laptop while my family laughed about my small ambitions. I kept it as a reminder. Sometimes the biggest power moves are the ones you make in silence, building an empire while they're busy looking successful. The real victory wasn't in proving them wrong. It was in succeeding so completely that their approval became irrelevant.